Howdy folks, Christina here. I hope everyone's doing well. I want to thank all my new subscribers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you supporting me. I recently got a request to do a video talking about my views on anarchy. In order for you to understand my views, I think it's important that I give you a little bit of my backstory. I was born in 1968. I was the seventh born of 8 children. My father passed away when I was 2 years old, leaving my mom to raise 8 children on her own. My dad worked for the government in the Pentagon, and his job had to do with decoding. One of my brothers said that several men in black came to the house and gathered up his papers, and my brother had seen some of these papers and documents and saw that some of this had to do with biological. There's something fishy about his death. I believe that he knew a little too much. He was super paranoid, and he wouldn't throw anything away. He would put all the garbage in the basement, and my mom would have to sneak the trash out. Now, my dad never let my mom drive or leave the house. He didn't even want her to open the curtains. After he died, she kind of like isolated herself in her bedroom. We pretty much raised ourselves. I just remember my mom always being available for us, but we kind of like ran amok. I spent most of my childhood playing in the woods behind my house, and I think that's one of the reasons why I just love nature, and I just want to live in nature. So I basically grew up in a non-authoritarian household. We were never scolded, we were never punished, we were never spanked or anything. When I was a child, I hated going to school. I hated it. I would watch the clock ticking the minutes away until it was time for me to be free. I remember standing in lines at school, and I took the sharp end of an instrument, like maybe a compass. I remember standing in a line, and I remember scraping at a spot on the wall, thinking, if I scrape long enough, I could just scrape down the whole school. I found a letter that the principal of my school wrote on the last day of school, and I had written all over this letter how much I hate school. I hate math, I hate language, I hate spelling, and I spelled everything wrong on purpose. It's shocking, some of the things that I wrote on this letter, but it is an example of how much I hated school. Now, I think it's important to question authority and question what they're teaching us in school. When I was in probably 3rd grade, learning about the movement of the tectonic plates, and I remember thinking, I don't think that's right. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but the fact that I was able to question that and question what the teachers were telling me, I think that is healthy because they start brainwashing us very young. And in fact, I highly recommend the book, The Underground History of American Education by John, I don't remember the author's name. I'll look it up and I'll put it right here. My family moved to Florida when I was 12, about 1980. And the school I went to then it was better. It was like a hippie school, and we were allowed to go barefoot and sit on the floor. But still, there was a part of me that just wanted out. When we would have recess, we would play archaeologist, which is what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be an archaeologist. So we would take spoons and we would just dig in the corner of the playground. We would just dig with these spoons, and I started just digging and digging and digging, and I'm like, I'm gonna dig out of here. I'm gonna dig a tunnel all the way to the gas station so I can buy candy bars. By the time I was 15, my mom allowed me to start basically homeschooling myself. I remember studying things that were far beyond my level. Now, I started working actually when I was 15, and I moved away from home up to Virginia to work for my brother, who had a chimney sweep company. But this was my first job, working in his office answering phones. And this was not like an office. This was just like a little rundown shack. I was like living in pretty rough conditions in the winter time. And I remember my hands got so cracked. They bled from just the cold and the dry air. I was sleeping on it was like the back bench seat of a van in like a little freezing cold back room. But I was like, I am a working woman. I'm making $4 an hour. And I'd work all week, and I would go to the mall on the weekends and go spend it all. So I was, at the time, you know, teenager, fashion, makeup, stuff like that. I remember going to see my friend who was in school. I remember sitting outside the school, waiting for her to get out. And I felt like I was like the bad kid in the movies that are like always skipping school and stuff. I lived in Baltimore in my early 20s. And I was called for jury duty, and they were trying to pick people. One of the lawyers asked the question, would you be able to follow the law even if it went against something you believe in very strongly? Now, out of all the jurors in the room, all of the potential jurors in the room, I was the only person that had the integrity to support my own values over some man-made law. I mean, this shows how much power they have over people. So fast forward several years, I had my daughter, Abra. And at that time, I was still sleeping.
Happy birthday, dear Abra. Happy birthday to you.
I did not know anything about and things like that. It was not really, it was before the internet, you know. So at that time, you know, they're telling me, you know, you gotta get this shot and that shot, and I'm just like, all right, have at it. I did know, however, that I was going to homeschool my daughter, and I was going to raise her as a vegetarian, no matter what anybody said. If I was bringing a child into the world, they were going to be vegetarian, and they were going to be homeschooled. Now, my daughter did go to an environmental school for a few years. Part of me wishes that I didn't do that, but she herself is happy that she went because it helped her to learn how to deal with people, helped socialize her. But it did create a blockage in her desire to read. She used to be an avid reader. She loved books like you would not believe. But once it became a requirement, like you have to read for, say, 15, 20 minutes every night, and you have to write it down and tell us how much you read. That's when she was just like, don't want to do it, I'm done. That is just the tragedy of compulsory education, is it makes children who are natural, who have a natural curiosity and love of learning, and it destroys that. So I pulled my daughter back out of school towards the end of her 5th grade, I believe, and we homeschooled from there. And when she decided she was ready to get her GED, she applied herself. You will learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. So you can't force anybody to learn something. I mean, I guess you can, but they're not as likely to retain that information. So I can't say the exact moment where I knew that I am an anarchist, but I do remember my awakening. It was 3 documentaries that I watched. It was Terror Storm, which was about 9/11, America, Freedom to Fascism, and The Century of the Self. These 3 documentaries are what got the ball rolling for me and really started opening my eyes to what's really going on in the world. Now, since then, I've become very discerning about the information that I take in, and I'm also willing to question my own beliefs. Around 2008, I became a very avid Ron Paul supporter.
Anarchy for the UK is coming sometime, maybe.
Me and my daughter Abra even drove up to South Carolina to attend one of his rallies. And in 2012, there was one of the presidential debates was at USF, the university here in Tampa. And so we went out there to sign wave and show our support. And I'm telling you, there were crowds of people lining the streets in support of Ron Paul. And none of this was shown on the major news media. When Ron Paul drove past, it was pandemonium. None of this was shown on the news. It's mind-blowing to me. It's like what they show in the mainstream media, it's not real. It's all controlled. You have to like question everything. After 2 presidential elections in a row and all that support for Ron Paul and him not getting elected, that was it for me. That was it. It doesn't matter who the people support. The people, who are really controlling everything, they're deciding. There's a plan, and they just want to create little worker slaves and keep you on the hamster wheel, running, trying to pay those bills. I mean, when half of your taxes go to pay for war, and a huge chunk goes to support subsidies for like the meat and the dairy industry, even corn and soybeans, like a lot of that is grown to feed to cattle for the beef industry. Your tax dollars are supporting animal experiments, in universities. Your tax dollars are going to the wild horse roundup. This went into effect during the Obama administration. They just round up these horses with helicopters, and they corral them, and they say it's to prevent overgrazing, but really they're doing this to support the cattle industry so they can graze the cattle. There's also the bison roundup that they do. As far as paying taxes and having to keep track of every little dime you spend and keep track of every mile that you drive so you can report this to the overlords and so that you might be able to keep a few more dollars in your pocket. I mean, this is like insane to have to like keep track of everything, It truly is psychological abuse. And just let me live my life. Leave me alone. In order to not support these industries and war, I intentionally keep my income low. I don't really want to partake of this sick system. We're slaves to them. When you work, they're taking the fruits of your labor. You're a slave. There's no other way to put it. And they don't represent us. They do not represent me. And if you think all this stuff that's going on is the truth, this is like psychological. I mean, just try this as an experiment. Turn off your TV. Don't check your social media just for one day. Just one day, and see what that does to your mental outlook on life. Live your life. It's so easy for them to manipulate numbers, manipulate facts, cook the books, so to speak. Just keep in mind that the TV tells you what to believe, even when the facts keep changing. It's so Orwellian. They're manipulating your mind. Government, literally means mind control. This is all to get the population under complete control. They want to eliminate so that they can keep track of every transaction. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Bill, he talks about, decreasing the population, but at the same time, he talks about things that will save lives. I mean, how does that even make sense, those two things together? And the worst part about all of this for me right now is that they've basically closed nature. I can't go to the park and go running or bike riding or taking the dogs out. It's off limits. And this is the start of the next step after that is where they want to give everybody. I mean, if this is all new to you, then you're probably just like, ooh, Christina, you crazy. So then people think without government, without laws, without police, it's going to be chaos. And most people are good people. I mean, think about it. If all of a sudden there were no man-made laws on the books, how many people that would suddenly be just like, I'm going to go out and commit a violent crime because there's no law that says I can't? Or how many people do you know that's going to go out and kill somebody because, there's no laws? And no, I mean, people are just going to do what they do. I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. And our government certainly doesn't have all the answers. Whew, man, and they are about as inefficient as you can get. This power pendulum just swings one way and then the other, and there's just so much bureaucracy. And I mean, why do things cost like millions and billions of dollars just to get a simple task done? I highly recommend looking into some of Mark Passio's work, where he talks about the meaning of government and natural law, laws that are inherent in nature, just the right to live your life. I just want to be able to live off grid. I want to build myself a little yurt, but there's all these laws that say I can't do that. Every living being has the right to build themselves a nest. There's no birds saying, oh, you can't do it that way. You have to do it this way, and you have to have everything in this and that. And, they say everything is vibration. And they're trying to bring our vibration way, way down. I mean, this overt sexuality and violence on TV. People just think violence is just normal. That this total blatant in your face sexuality is normal. I mean, all this craziness is the new normal. But it doesn't have to be. You might be just well, how are we gonna have anarchy? How? How can we function without government? Well, it's easy. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you might go for a walk, fix yourself breakfast, maybe build something without the tentacles of control of the government, things will eventually come into a natural balance. It's just, life could be so simple. It could be so simple. Lizard's fighting on the fence. Whoa. Whoa. So I'm going to leave some links to some resources that you may find very interesting if you want to delve into the concept of anarchy a little bit more. One book I recommend is The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. You can also go to the Conscious Resistance Network, and Derek Brose has some very excellent books on anarchy. There's a website called the Anarchist Library, and it has articles and actually PDFs to full books, even some classics like Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson and The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. I'm also going to include a link to Colin Donahue's essay, The Root in Justice. An excellent, excellent essay. Colin, thanks for requesting this video. I'm sorry if it's not exactly what you had in mind. It's such a huge topic, and heck, maybe I'll make some more videos on anarchy. And really the only way to true peace is anarchy. I think it's important to go inside and find a place of peace within. Be strong in who you are. Have the courage of your convictions. Have integrity, compassion, generosity, and as always, peace, love,